I need some traction. You need some traction.
Hey everyone, Lloyd Lobo here, co-founder at Boast AI and Launch Academy in partnership with Growth Blazers, Founder Institute, Lazaridis Institute, and BCF Ventures. I am particularly excited about today's topic because it's on premature scaling and how to scale more effectively. So more than 70% of the startups fail because they try to scale prematurely, and avoiding those pitfalls of premature scaling requires a personalized approach for every company because it's not one size fit all, right? There are some key takeaways that are common, but generally you need to customize it for yourself. And I couldn't find a better speaker than Tamara. She's a managing director at Microsoft's venture arm, M12, and she's accelerated growth at startups like Acompli and Path before pivoting to the other side as an investor. And she's investing in great SaaS companies that are scaling. Tamara, thanks for making the time. How are you in COVID times?
Yeah, I'm great, and I'm excited to be here. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So excited to meet your audience and hopefully give some advice that will be valuable.
Awesome. And yeah, you're an experienced operator and entrepreneur. You've got 20 years of experience in Silicon Valley startups, as well as large companies. And Acompli was a mobile productivity app and got acquired by Microsoft. Walk us through your journey. Is that how you ended up in investing?
Um, Kind of. So it's a little serendipitous in the sense that I was at Acompli. There were 11 of us, and some of us had worked together before. So, like they say, put the band back together. I seem to like email companies. I started at a company called software.com in the mid 90s when the email wasn't even such a thing, right? All my friends thought it was so funny that I was going to go to work at an email company. But anyway, then we started another email company called Acompli doing mobile email. And I had a previous relationship with Microsoft. So we started talking with them about the tech, and they liked it enough that they decided to buy the company and make it Outlook Mobile. So I was in business development for them under the productivity office suite, if you will, and had a team that did a lot of our business development deals, everything from Google to Apple to preloading all of our office apps on Samsung. And then because I was in the San Francisco office, there happened to be an opportunity in our venture fund to lead North America and India. And since I had raised so many rounds with all my startups over the years, they thought, well, what better than to have an operator sit on the other side of the table? And it's been fantastic because it gets me back into my startup addiction, and I love meeting new founders.
Fantastic. What a journey it's been. 6 startups, 4 acquired, 2 IPO. Tamara, without further ado, please take it away.
So thanks again. This is a super fun talk. It's something near and dear to my heart. As he mentioned, I'm at M12, which is Microsoft's venture arm. We are a venture fund that invests off our balance sheet. So we've been in business a little over 5 years, primarily investing in B2B SaaS. But we do a bit of deep tech as well. So things, robotics and artificial intelligence, a little quantum computing on the top. So a little bit beyond B2B SaaS, if you will. But that's kind of our focus. And the advantage of M12 is that it is Microsoft, and we do have the opportunity to use our engine to help our startups grow and get into Microsoft and make the right introductions for our founders and for our portfolio companies. So if you look at the priorities, when I talk to founders and I sit on a lot of boards, the question is, what does matter when you're scaling your startup? And you think about where you are in your journey. Are you right at the beginning where you're still working through that product market fit? Are you in the middle where you have pretty much product market fit and you can push it forward? Or are you really on your journey on the other side, meaning you're ready to just throw gas on it and keep going? So I think you have to think about where you're at and then what do you apply to that part of your journey. I do see a lot of startups jump straight into the solution during the pitch. And that's okay, but sometimes it's better when you're going to pitch your company to stop and say, this is the problem we're going to solve. Like, this is why we started this company, is that this is the problem, and that problem is going to have a total addressable market. So it's very easy for me to understand what the addressable market is if you tell me what the problem is first, and talk to me about examples of where you've seen the problem and then what you're going to apply, and then tell me about the solution, right? And tell me what the solution is going to fix. Is it money that you're losing? Is it time wasted? Is it a process which requires me pulling in data from 14 different sources, and so I'm manually doing that, but then once I get it together, I can solve a different problem. I like to tell a story. One of the companies I went to, which was a recap, actually, really cool technology. It's common now with iCloud and with Google backup, but it wasn't when mobile phones first came out. And so for some of you, the ones that are a little older would know that one of the common things with mobile phones in the beginning was it would be in your pocket, right? It would be that foldable flip phone, or it would be a small phone, and you would use the bathroom and the phone would end up in the toilet. And I can't tell you how funny this is, because Fusion One did mobile backup, and their first customer was Verizon. And Verizon, we went in to talk to them about, backing up a mobile phone. And they said, the biggest problem we have is people come into the Verizon store and they go, I dropped my phone in the toilet and I've lost everything. And Verizon had this great marketing technique, and it was just called backup, right? So you actually would go into a Verizon store, they would hand you a new phone, and everything would be on the phone. And they charged $1 a month. And it was one of the most profitable solutions they ever offered. And people loved it, right? Because they knew if they lost their phone, obviously phones are left in taxis, they're dropped, they're lost, they're broken. And you couldn't, back in the day, you couldn't recover it. So easy problem to understand, easy problem to make money on, and easy distribution model, because all of the operators wanted to have that type of solution for their customers. And people would stay with Verizon forever because they had a backup solution for the phone. Again, not a problem now, but it was back then. And then really focus on what matters, right? Because there are so many distractions. I was talking to a founder this morning who had been talking to other corporate venture funds, and he said, one of our funds that's on the board already, they could keep me busy 100% of the time. I mean, they always have great ideas for me. They have introductions. They have, so many things. He goes, but I have to pick and choose, right? I really have to take the most important introduction, so that I'm not, everything they give me, I'm not spending my entire day or my entire week on all their ideas and their introductions that they can make. He was, as we get bigger and as we get more resources, we'll be able to take more of that on, but I'm gonna, pick and choose. And then take inventory of all the data you have access to and figure out what is gonna move your business forward. Another good example of, in my journey, I was at a company called Path. Very popular social media app. Several guys from Facebook actually started it. It was a private social network. Some of you may have used it. It really took off in Southeast Asia, particularly in Indonesia and Malaysia, Philippines. And it was, we couldn't even keep up with the growth. It actually, eventually we sold it to Dom Kakao, the owner of Kakao Talk in Korea. But Path was interesting because it made sense, right? Anybody who was on your network was your friend. Nobody else could see it. And you only communicated with your network. But if you got on the network and you had no friends, you realized that you can't really even find anybody, because there was no way to get this network going, and so that you actually had something to share. And so we realized that where people, the cohort, on not losing them as a customer, as a user, was once they had 7 friends, they would start posting multiple times a day, right? Things they were doing, fun, tips, videos, whatever, they would push on. If they never got to 7 friends, we eventually would lose them because it wasn't valuable enough for them to share with, 2 or 3 people. So that was the tipping point. And they found that our growth and data team started to really look at all of the users and who was using the app more and how many times a day were they using it. Once you got to 7 friends, the average time people opened the app was over 19 times a day, which is incredible. So we knew we had to get people friends, right? So we started actually befriending them ourselves. If they didn't have 7 friends, I would be your friend. So it was really fun, and actually we got to know a ton of people all over the world because you actually got to know a lot of the folks on the network as you became their friends. But really, most people had 7 friends of their own. So I maybe not me. I picked up most of my friends on Path. I also like to say, stay in your swim lane. I worked at a company called Boingo, and Boingo does wireless Wi-Fi, and many of you may use it in airports around the world. When it was first started, a guy by the name of Sky Dayton started it. He was the founder of Earthlink, one of the smartest people I've ever worked with ever. And he was interesting. He taught me that if every function in the company is doing great, putting them all together, it will also do great. And what he meant by that is like, let's get our marketing in line and let's do it great. Let's get our sales and our process and our business development, and let's get that working, great. Let's get engineering working great. And all together, when we put this together, it's going to be great. But that also means that the head of engineering doesn't need to jump into the sales swim lane and try to close a deal, right? Maybe if I need his help or her help, I will ask for that and bring them into my swim lane. But if everybody stays in their swim lane, we can eventually get there together and we'll have several winners, right? So I think that's really important. I have another analogy. I grew up outside of Detroit, and so was a big softball player, and also a lot of bowling because of winters. But playing softball, I moved to Texas, and I got on a co-ed softball team, and it was a bunch of folks from work, and we get out to the first game, and our shortstop is the coach, and he's also clearly the best player on the team. But he would literally fear that the right fielder couldn't catch the ball. He was worried. And so he would run from shortstop all the way to right field, make a miraculous catch, but then nobody's on shortstop, right? Nobody's there if you're throwing the ball in and the second baseman needs to be backed up or the third baseman needs help. He's out in right field. And so I always say, you got to play your position, because otherwise you got one person on the field running all over, you will never win the game. So, I see CEOs try to do that where they're really trying to be everything to everybody. Don't. Trust your team. You'll build an amazing culture if you let people do their job and do it great and give them a chance. Everybody makes mistakes. That's okay. But build trust among the team, play your position, and you will get there. And I'm still a firm believer, even at M12, that we all play our position. And it makes us diligence our investments better. It makes us help founders better because we give them the same advice. And so I think it carries forward in any organization. I'm a partnership person. That's how I started. I've always run sales in BD, and it is a way to have great shortcuts. But you can't let partnerships overwhelm you. So being like, when we decided to align Acompli with Microsoft, we didn't also try to go to Google or go to other big companies. We picked one and we said, okay, we're going to try to make this work. We still were doing our own direct sales and our own enterprise sales. So we were working through that. But when we were talking about partnerships, we were a team of 11. We couldn't go do 5, 6 big partnerships. So we put all our eggs in one basket. It paid off, but we also knew that enterprise was where we wanted to sell. And so we needed to be integrated into Outlook, integrated into the Microsoft framework so that we could use that as our basis to grow. And it paid off, right? We got it because of our relationship with Microsoft. We were able to sell more to the enterprise. We knew we could get other partnerships in the future if we could succeed with Microsoft. So we knew how to do that. We probably could have picked Google as well. It probably would have been equally good for us, but we chose Microsoft and we stuck with it, and it paid off. Microsoft can be overwhelming too. So when our founders and we invest in startups, sometimes we slow roll them into Microsoft because we don't want to overwhelm our founders with a bunch of things they need to go do, whether it's integrations or meeting big customers. If I take a new company that's, just got product market fit or even just got the product out the door, and I say, okay, we're going to take you into 10 Microsoft customers or 20 Microsoft customers, that could really derail their effort, right? Let's pick one. Let's pick one or two that we can go in, we can support you, we can have success, develop a reference base, and go from there. So I think it's important. Partnerships can make the company, they can help you scale. Don't try to do too many early stage when you're early stage, and try to put gas on the fire later in the game when you're ready for it. This is a big one for me. Prioritize people. You're always building a network, right? So you're always, as you're growing the company, you always want to think about, I'm hiring, I'm always hiring. And you're the face of the company as a founder or as other people in the company. You always want to build that network to make sure that you can bring in more people when you need them. And just recognize that culture matters, right? We have the ability at Microsoft to have an inclusion index and measure a lot of that, so we know if we're doing the right things. And I think Satya does a great job of telling the story. Microsoft sells their products everywhere, right? We're all across the globe, and we sell to everybody, right? If that's not the makeup of our organization from an engineering perspective, from a sales perspective, then we're doing ourselves a disservice, right? We're not going to make the best products, right? So if you don't have women in engineering and people of color in engineering, and you're selling to this broad audience, well, you're not going to have a great product, right? You're going to have a product that fits a certain market, and you're going to miss a big part of the market. So think about inclusion and think about how you're building your team from the beginning, because it is easier to build an inclusive team and a diverse team in the beginning than when you're 5 years into your journey. So think about it from the beginning and make it a priority. You'll end up with a better team, a better culture, and you'll have a lot more fun as well.
Definitely. Let's, fantastic slides there, great information, and I learned a ton here. I'm going to take questions as they come along, but a few here. What are investors looking for right now, from seed funded companies to get to Series A? I mean, you're in the space. What are you looking for?
Yeah, the question, we've just started to do more seed in the last couple of years. So prior to that, we didn't do a lot, but we're leaning into that now. So the seed is really wide open, right? If you can come with a great idea and understand what the total addressable market is, and you're solving a problem, and maybe you have, kind of an MVP or something that you can show, I think you can pitch a seed, right? They're not, usually seed companies are 2 or 3 people. So, and we understand that, and we know that. Sometimes you were able to get angel funding early on, or friends and family, so you get a little further along. And in that case, you might be able to do a larger seed round. I know people are saying lately that seed rounds have become A, and A has become, B. I mean, they're bigger and bigger, right? I think we just recently shared, we're doing an A round on a company that the seed was, over 5 million. And I just saw a seed round done the other day that was 10 million. So it kind of depends on what the total addressable market, how far along you are, and if you've raised a little prior or not, right? So what are we looking for? So at M12, we're still pretty focused on B2B. That's our sweet spot. So enterprise software, enterprise solution, cloud-based solution, artificial intelligence, something that solves a fairly big problem, and at least generally has some framework around it. that you can tell us how you're going to get to market.
And what metrics are you seeing at the A level and at the B level that interest you guys?
So metrics, and that's also it's a little hard to answer as a broad question, but I would say in B2B SaaS, we look for, $1 million to 2 million in ARR for an A round. More is better. But at least some sort of revenue that we can understand the trajectory and a forecast so that we can look at it and say, here's the pipeline, here's where they're going. So I think that's important to us. So 1 to 2 million in revenue, ballpark. And then, reasonable valuation. And that's a tough question, right? Because valuation
right now the market is bonkers. And when you said 1 to 2
bonkers.
million, that's at the A round, right?
Yeah, 1 to 2 million we're seeing at the A. I mean, we're gonna announce a really exciting deal next week that they happen to have 5 million, right? And they're doing their A. They just had great product market fit after they got their seed and they took off, right? Crazy successful. We don't see that all the time. 1 to 2 is usually what we're seeing at an A.
And at a B?
At a B, 5 plus is usually B. And these are ballparks. I mean, I've seen Bs where people don't even have that, companies don't even have that amount of revenue, but they did find product market fit. And so there is a lot of traction in the last, say, 2 quarters, right? But you can see it. And so they did an A and they're ready for the B. They might not have a lot of revenue, but maybe the last 2 quarters really showed the product market fit. And we see that. And so we can jump in. Price rise, for us, we like to get into an A round when it's less than 100 million pre. We like to have 10% or more. And we like to lead. So we're a little bit different than a lot of corporate venture in that we generally lead our rounds. We take board seats and we like a significant part of ownership. The benefit to that is Microsoft has an amazing ability to help companies grow, especially if you're selling to the enterprise or even mid-market or even SMB, pretty strong in all 3. But if you need a distribution and you need to go to market and your product would fit, our enterprise sales team, and we can find a way to co-sell with you, we can get you there, right? At least half of our companies co-sell with our sales team and are out there with us. Sell to Microsoft is another one, right? So we try to pick companies where Microsoft might even use the tech, right? And really get Microsoft to be the customer. So we have both sell into and sell with, co-sell.
And then from a valuation at a B round perspective, what are you seeing these days?
Yeah, Bs are tougher. You can see a lot. I would say average range on a B is between 1 and 200, which is crazy compared to what it was just 2 years ago.
I mean, like I'm talking to friends and customers who are like seeing effectively on a 15 million ARR in some industries, seeing like $1 billion valuations. It's bonkers right now.
Yeah, that is bonkers. And I have a different view on that than a lot of people. I don't think valuation is that critical in the sense that if you go out and take a valuation, let's say you take an 800 million, $1 billion valuation, and you really don't have what I would consider the revenue to support that valuation, but the market's so hot and everybody's going so crazy. What happens then is, let's say a year from now, your revenue is only 25 million and you need to raise again, right? Or maybe 2 years from now, and you hit a bump in the road, whatever. And we have another crazy, something happens, hopefully not another pandemic, but the market changes. We move into a recession, something, economically changes a bit. We go through another election year. It's hard for you to raise again, right? It's almost impossible to raise again when you were overvalued in the last round. So you want to be careful to match your valuation to where you are in your journey, because you can't, otherwise you're doing down rounds and you're going backwards, right? So unless your execution is going to be, off the charts, be careful on those high valuations, because you got to live up to it quickly, right? You got to be able to step into that big shoe you just took And if you can, that's great. So don't get me wrong. If you can, it's great. But in some cases, you can't. And it's then the traction, and then you're changing the way you raise going forward. And, you know, unless, and the other thing is take the valuation. If you know you'll never need gas in the tank again, it's maybe okay to take that high valuation. But remember, you got to get out the door eventually, right? You either got to sell or go public. And I mean, exit in some way, they say, right? And make sure you think you can exit at that valuation that you're taking, right? At 5x, because that's what your investors are thinking. Maybe at $1 billion valuation, they're only thinking, 3 to 4x, 5x, but think about that, because that's hard to do. It's very few companies are able to do it.
Definitely. A lot of questions coming in because you mentioned product market fit a few times. What are the signals for product market fit? What specific metrics, milestones do you use to measure product market fit? How do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to do product market fit is look at revenue, right? How many deals are you doing? What's your ACV? What is your, how many customers do you have that is product market fit. That said, sometimes you can see it early on where you're able to do maybe proof of concept. So you can do 2 or 3 or 4 of those and really show those references, and you'll know, right? Because they got a lot of value out of it. You did a proof of concept. It made perfect sense. They're going to buy it, right? So I saw a company yesterday, and they literally have 98% conversion in sales. Okay, if your conversion, even if your revenue is only a couple million a year, if your conversion is 98% and you've got more than 10 customers, you probably have product market fit, right? You're probably getting pretty close to, being great.
Definitely. Now, a few questions around team building and priorities. Like, any thoughts on figuring out competing priorities about directing investment dollars towards product, sales, marketing, support, back office? Like, how do you advise your companies on that?
Yeah, it really depends on the product, right? So it depends on how difficult and technical the product is from an engineering perspective to develop. At Acompli, as an example, we had 2 people on the business side, myself and the marketing person. Oh, I guess, and technically a growth person. The growth person was both technical and business, and the rest was engineering, right? Everybody was writing code. They probably would have had me write code if they could. They know better though. And, I really do believe it depends on the product. It depends on how technical it is. I've had other folks that have had smaller engineering teams, but really good go-to-market teams, right? And they're out there and they're able to get more sales done, and they're going to back into some more engineering later. So I think it really depends on what the product is and what the solution is.
In terms of balancing between strict role scopes and collaboration to avoid silos, how do you find that balance where you grow and you, as you scale, and you want to make sure your vision is aligned with the rest of the team and things are not siloed? What do you advise?
Yeah, I mean, that's the job of a great CEO, a great founder, or 2 co-founders, depending on how you're running the company. Transparency and communication, right? All the time. The best CEOs, the best founders that I've seen have at least weekly meetings with the entire team, right? Doesn't have to be, hour-long meetings, right? Stand-ups. I mean, we probably did a stand-up. They did a stand-up every day at Acompli, but as far as just going over things outside of engineering, we probably did it 2 or 3 times a week. Right? I would give the whole team an update on sales. Every engineer in the group knew what we were working on, who was coming in to meet with us. Everyone had access to our customer visits and how those things were coming out. Like, I would send out reports to everyone to say, hey, we met with AT&T and this is what happened and this is what they said and here's what I think the sales cycle is going to be. That's an early stage company though, right? But I wanted everybody to know what was happening, so that they understood that everything they're doing in engineering is fantastic, right? Or, hey, they gave us a couple of ideas. What do you guys think about this? So there was a lot of transparency in the organization, which just created a great culture.
Let me ask you a follow-up question to that. The best CEOs that you know, what were the best things they did? And the CEOs that you weren't so much a fan of, what were the worst things they did?
Yeah, well, I think I worked for really good CEOs, so I don't know that I have worst CEOs per se, but I will say the best um, were always transparent, right? So that even when the company was 10 people, when it got to 200, it still felt exactly the same, right? They were transparent, and there was a level of communication where you didn't feel like, oh gosh, now we're 200 people, I don't know what's going on, right? That people in different levels, or the newer people that came on, didn't understand what was happening. A CEO that can carry a company from 10 to 200 or 10 to 2000 and keep that level of transparency so everybody still feels like it's 10 people, those are the best CEOs, right? And that's the best culture. The ones who don't, and like the company gets so big that people get lost, that's a problem. And generally speaking, that's when a CEO probably should step aside, right? They were great in a small company, they're not so great in a big company, so maybe they want to transition into something new, like another
Definitely.
small company.
Certainly, and I say this often, is the job of a leader. One of the jobs of a leader is clearly articulating and communicating your vision, not only to inform, but really to excite, inspire, and motivate people. It's a very hard skill to have, because oftentimes you're like, okay, I'm just going to inform for the sake of it, but really what you're looking to do is excite, inspire, and motivate them, because excited, inspired, and motivated people can move mountains.
Yes. Yep.
What are the top scaling mistakes you've seen at various stages? So like seed, A, and B. Let's stop at B. The top ones.
Well, probably the biggest mistake is burn, right? You think you're going at a certain cadence, and you think you're gonna, you finally hit product market fit, so you increase your burn, and you didn't quite hit product market fit. Your sales don't match your burn, right? You got to be able to pull back on that, right? So you can't get ahead, right? It's okay to spend a little to make a little, right? So you want to put a little bit more into marketing, a little bit more into sales, but do it in a way so that you're not increasing your burn so much that you can't fix the problem, right? Biggest problem in a startup is you run out of cash, right? And that's not, nobody's seeing those problems at the moment, but let's not forget where we were in 2000 and 2008. It does happen, and you can run out of cash, right? So you really need to watch your burn and make sure you've got a plan, and that you're following the plan. And if you jig or jag, you're able to recover. But I think burn is a big thing. Got to watch the spend.
Definitely. And then is that consistent across? Because once you at a B stage, or growing beyond that, you should have a handle on that. I mean, you have a CFO or professionals around the table. What are some other frustrating things you've seen happen once a team has got a handle on burn?
Yeah, I mean, I think not keeping up with engineering, right, and R&D, so that you had this great product market fit, you were getting all of the latest deals, and your traction is great, and then all of a sudden you're not, right, because somebody else behind you came up with a better idea, and so I say make sure you understand your competition all the time, because one, by the time you get to a B and you've got some traction and you did a big round, potentially some of those early stage competitors you might be able to acquire. So you really want to make sure you don't stop looking at the competition, because it can come up to bite you later. So I say keep an eye on that. But believe me, even once you get to B, people have made a mistake on burn. So I go back to the burn.
Definitely. And so question here from Marcel on investor ecosystems. How do you manage and align two or more investor firms as a stakeholders? For example, like you got a PE firm in conjunction with a corporate venture fund, or a corporate VC with a traditional VC. like how do you align these people if you've got a mix of investors, or do you not recommend mixing like that? If you're taking corporate VC, then go all in on corporate VC. What are your recommendations?
No, you always want to mix. I mean, I think mixing is actually really good, right? Because Microsoft's platform is very different than, say, Index or Redpoint or Sequoia, right? So they're gonna be able to help you in a very different way. One, a bigger fund like an Index or Sequoia, they've got really deep pockets, right? So they're going to get you to D and E and wherever you may need to go long term. Microsoft will too. I mean, we do lots of follow on when we invest, but a corporate venture capital has a different platform than a traditional VC, and they both can be awesome. So you just have to figure out what you really need. Are you an enterprise software play? Microsoft's probably a pretty good corporate VC to go with, right? Because we can really put fire on the fuel of your enterprise tech, right? Maybe if you've got this crazy consumer play, Sequoia's had a tremendous success in consumer, right? So maybe that's, they've had tremendous success in everything. But, the reality is pick your investors based on how they can help you grow. What are they going to help you do as a board and as follow-on funding? But yeah, mixing them is generally not a problem. I would say be careful with corporate venture if they want odd terms, meaning they want right of first refusal if you're going to sell, or any sort of right of notice. Be careful about those because you don't want to be trying to negotiate with your corporate venture fund if you want to sell the company, right? If we invest, we don't put any crazy terms in our deals. And if you want to sell your company to Google, that's great, as long as we're both making money, right? That's the most important thing.
Definitely. Jason asks here, what are you seeing in terms of amount of capital required for a startup to get from, say, your prototype first customer to product market fit, and then from product market fit to about 5-6 million in ARR? And let's assume this is B2B SaaS.
Yeah. I would say to get to 5 to 6 million, you should be able to do it under 10 million, I would say. Seed round of 3 and an A round of 7 to 10. So I think you can get there in 10 million personally. I hope you can. Sometimes I will say consumer is harder. You actually need more money to get to product market fit in consumer and to get to revenue. So consumer is going to be a bit different than B2B. Should be slightly easier in B2B SaaS if you can figure out a product that people are going to buy.
Definitely. So what I'm hearing is 3-ish million in seed should get you to product market fit, and 7 to 10 million should get you to 5-6 million in revenue, hopefully.
Yep.
Hope is not a strategy, but let's hope that happens. Jason also asks, do you have recommended business tools, suggested stack to help CEOs, co-founders to scale? Like, what are the recommended tools that some of your CEO use to scale their companies?
Wow. Microsoft. No, I have to say that, right? Yes. Everyone should use Teams. The reality is, I do think you need a very good CRM solution. And I think Salesforce and Dynamics are both great. I think there are newer tools in the market coming out that you'll see over the next couple of years that I think are going to make a big difference in productivity. Because I do think Slack and Teams and Zoom are all fantastic. That I don't know that the productivity side of the world has changed that much as far as name brands. I think the technology's gotten a lot better, in financials and CRM, as well as help desk and tools like that. I mean, the bigger players are still doing really well. There's still, there is some newer technology that's popping up that we're starting to see that I'm really impressed with, especially on the sales side. So I think from an enterprise sales play, I think you'll see some technology out there as far as, with AI being applied to sales, that's going to change the game, I think, on the sales side. But, there's a lot of good good products. I'm happy to, if anybody wants to reach out to me, I can, put together a list for them of the things I think are best.
Yeah,
That would
definitely.
be personal preference.
If you can share it with me, we'll link it to the YouTube video as well. Now, sticking back to that seed and Series A metrics that we talked about, sort of 3 million should get you to product market fit, 7 million ish should get you to 5-6 million in revenue. What time frame are you looking at in that?
Seed, I mean, I hope, most seed is a year to 18 months. That's what we're normally seeing. So, hopefully, again, a lot of times by the time you get to seed, you might have done some angel funding or friends and family. So you've got a little bit further along, so maybe that's a 2-year time frame in total. And then, your Series A is maybe another year, 18 months. And then, so I'd say 3 to 5 years to get to your, B.
Definitely. Awesome. And with Microsoft, I guess, or in general, how long from pitch to check average? Some folks are asking, or a yes, no.
Yeah. Well, if it's a no, we say no quickly. We try. And if it's a yes, for us, average time frame is about 30 days, but we've been known to do things in a week. So if there's a really competitive, crazy, round going on, and we want to get in, we'll go super fast. But generally speaking, we once we bring a founder in and we do a pitch, so a week to schedule the pitch, do the pitch, we write a memo, we vote, and 2 weeks of legal and funding. So we can pretty much do soup to nuts in 30 days. I think we're pretty standard as far as venture goes. Again, if we have to go faster, we have a process where we can go a lot faster. But normally we try to get to know founders and ideas far enough ahead where, a 30-day process usually fits their window.
Definitely. And we talked about like sort of Series A valuation of like sub 100 million for you guys. B is in the 100 to 200 million. What are you seeing at seed out there valuations?
Wow, that's even crazier, right? It really varies, right? It could be, 10, 20 million, 30 million. I don't see a lot of seed over 30. That it would be tough unless somebody really had that early stage. They really worked on it for a couple of years and maybe really had market traction and then jumped into seed. But yeah, generally not too much.
Generally over. 5 to 20 is what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. And then in terms of like from your experience, marketing, sales, what are some of the most effective tactics your companies have been using or that you recommend companies use, especially like coming out of COVID here? What are you seeing?
Yeah, the COVID thing has been crazy. So one of my teams is our market development team. And normally, very much like what you and I talked about before we started the webinar was, you did a lot of in-person events, right? Some small, some big. We would jump on to some of the ones, Microsoft is doing. So we get our founders and our portfolio into those, and that all stopped. So, we do try to jump into the Microsoft virtual opportunities when we can with our portfolio companies. But my market dev team actually works with each one of our portfolio companies once or twice a year to come up with a way to market their tech virtually. And we try to help fund that. So anything from, I attended actually a wine tasting with a bunch of CISOs, right? Security experts. And, they had a Silicon Valley bank sent everybody a bottle of wine ahead of time. And it was really quite social. It was pretty fun. So and I know a lot of that's been done during COVID, but those types of ideas, everything we send out demos, we send out baskets, we send out things, in the mail, packages. So it's been a unique year. I think we've had a lot of good ideas, and then our founders are willing to share with other founders like what's worked for them. And then we'll give them the map of hey, this virtual event did really well, or this way of getting together worked really well. So we've had a lot of creative opportunities come up over the last year. And again, our market dev team just works individually with every founder to come up with whatever the idea can be.
Now, say you funded a company, right? And what do you want to see them do, or what advice do you have for them to prioritize over the next 90 days?
Once we fund, I mean, normally we'll say, if we're the investor, we'll say, what's the 2 or 3 things you want us to do at Microsoft, right? Like, what are those things? You want to co-sell with us, so we'll get that rolling, right? We'll make sure they get into our field organization and get to know the process to be able to co-sell with Microsoft. Do you want to sell to Microsoft? And if you already are, or you already have some connections into Microsoft, how can we help make more introductions and help you sell your product into Microsoft? That's not always a fit for everything we invest in, but in some cases it is. So we'll help with that. But quarter over quarter, we'd like to just have a couple of sales success, right? If it's an A or a seed, a few deals is a great quarter, right? And so we want to step in and make as many introductions as we can and really help with the process where we can. So, I say in the first 90 to 180 days, we try to make introductions that mean something and really get them in front of customers that will buy their product.
And tied to that, when you look at companies as they're hiring, right? Like, you raise this money, you're hiring. How do you know if somebody is not over execing or over VPing? Because it's like, okay, I need now a head of sales, I need a VP of sales, I need a VP of market, I need a CMO, CTO, I need every C-suite on the planet. Like, how do you advise them to sort of go about that hiring cadence while also promoting and bringing in the best, promoting from within and also bringing in external help?
Yeah, and that really goes back to the question we talked about earlier, which is burn, right? What is the plan, right? What are we anticipating we're going to burn over the next year, month over month, and bringing in the sales organization and the right managers at the right time. So we will sit down and work through a plan with them and give them examples of what's been successful in the past, with other companies of similar size, similar industry. So we'll try to advise. I've seen people be pretty conservative over the last year or so. And I think it was because the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know what was going to happen, right? And so we threw a bunch of dry powder at our founders and at our companies to make sure they were okay and they had enough cash for a year, because we didn't know what was going to happen. And more than half of them got COVID tailwinds, right? I have one awesome company called Schedulo. They knew how to do COVID. They did frontline worker execution, if you will. So you like nurses, doctors, whatever, and not just in the medical industry, also in field service, but they were able to take their technology and turn it into a COVID testing frontline software. And they won every COVID testing, in the United States and across the globe, right? Maybe not every, but a lot. And then obviously, since they were doing COVID testing, they were able to create a COVID vaccination scheduling, right? Same technology that does field service scheduling could do COVID vaccine scheduling. And they, quadrupled. They're amazing, right? So they were able to think about what was available in the market and how they were going to go sell their solution. Other technology really got put on the back burner, right? Some of the artificial intelligence stuff, some stuff that is a longer sales cycle did start to take a little bit longer. It's all come back now. Everybody's, moving full steam ahead, but it really depended last year what happened, right? Like, were you going to get tailwinds or were you going to get headwinds, right? And then how do you plan for that?
Definitely. Couple questions here around, you talked about seed. So what regions are you investing in? Seed, A, B, or agnostic?
Yeah,
Like
well,
across
we're
the world?
global. I mean, that's the beauty of Microsoft, right? We really are everywhere. As far as investing, though, we do about 70% of our investments are out of North America and India. And then we do some out of Israel and a bit out of Europe. We put some resources in Europe last year. So we're kind of focused on, Europe, Israel, North America, India. And India for us is Southeast Asia, because we do Australia, we've done some stuff in Singapore, etc.
what specific technologies and trends are you investing in these days? What's exciting you?
Okay, I'll make it a personal question because
Yes.
we have 10 investors, so everybody does something a little bit different. I'm a big fan of productivity and sales, just any sort of worker improvement environment. I really love that. So I lean in a lot on sales tech, marketing tech, that type. I would say, one of the guys on the team loves DevOps and security, so he really leans in on the latest DevOps and security side. Another on the team is what I would call kind of our vertical or retail expert, and she does a lot of that. It's a big focus for Microsoft retail, obviously, and we obviously lean in a lot on healthcare and life sciences, right? So we have another person that really looks at that from that perspective. And then we have some brainiacs that focus on what I call deep tech, right? Quantum computing and things like that. That's not me, but we do have people that actually know all about that.
Awesome. I was saving the best for the last, I guess, but one of your superpowers is partnerships. What are your top 3 to 5 recommendations to build like partnerships, solid partnerships to scale your business?
Yeah, it's got to be a win-win on both sides, right? So, when we did Acompli and Microsoft had no mobile mail solution, right? They had nothing, right? So we knew that if we had a mobile mail solution that was the best on Android and on iOS for Outlook, that we could, really get their attention. So I would say when you're looking at a partnership, it needs to be a win-win. We did a huge partnership with Samsung a couple of years ago where we put all of the Office applications built into Samsung Android devices. And it works beautiful on Windows, and you can use it on your Windows device, and you can move to your Android device. And it was a win-win because Samsung wanted to have great apps on their phone, and we had apps that we could work with them on. So we found a way to make it best on Samsung. So I would say when you're looking at partnerships, make sure the value that you have really is about the partnership, right? What are you taking to that partner that's going to drive their business that will ultimately drive your business? It's got to go both ways.
And where do you see, like, sometimes you partner with large organizations as a startup, and like they take you on you're on this wild goose chase, right? How do you know that they're really in? Like, how do you prioritize who you partner with, basically, so you're not going on this goose chase?
Yeah, you gotta figure that out fast, right? And big companies like Microsoft, Google, all of us can cause those problems. You really gotta net it out quickly, right? Like, am I talking to the right person? Is this what they need? What is the time frame where we can get this to the finish line? If it's not within a reasonable time frame and it's going to cost you money and you're a startup, don't do it. Move on to the next one, right? You can't be spending all your time and resources on a deal that's going to take you a year and you're going to get no revenue, right? What is a reasonable time frame? And generally speaking, you should be able to get a good partnership going within 30 to 60 days. And if you can't get that done where you're going to start generating revenue from that relationship, put that one on the side and go on to one that you can get done.
Awesome. And tying to that, how does a B2B SaaS startup initiate a partnership with Microsoft?
We're big. You know what? We have really an awesome business development team. It's actually quite small. It's, I think, last count, maybe 400 or so. So believe it or not, that's very small for a company that's 150,000 employees and as global as we are. So really, the business development team at Microsoft, that is their role, is to find great partnerships that allow for growth for both companies, right? That will drive something for Microsoft and drive something for the partnership. So I work within the business development organization. They're really pretty efficient. And as Satya says, we run our company on partnerships. It's very important to Microsoft. Partnerships are part of our DNA. So hopefully you can find the right people in the biz dev team. I mean, I'm always willing to help, and I know our entire venture fund is willing to help find the right people. So, reach out.
And last couple of questions here. Earl asks, how do you know if an investor is serious to invest or they're just doing market research? Like,
Ask them that question.
yeah, and you think most people, like, if you ask them point blank, you'll get a decent enough answer?
Well, I mean, if they're not, you should, first of all, you need to know your own process, right? So when I meet a founder, I'm like, tell me about your company, but first tell me about your process. Are you raising? What is the time frame you need to raise? When do you want to start and stop your process, right? Most people run a process, whether it's Series A, Series B, Series C, and you do want to give yourself about 90 days. But hopefully things are going a lot faster now. So 30 to 60 days is a reasonable time frame. But let's say you're going to run it in 90 days. If they can't get back to you and get you in front of the investors within a 2-week time frame, and let's say that 30-day, like we say we're about a 30-day process. If they can't get you in front of their investors to meet them and talk through your solution, then they're not interested, right? Don't worry about it. Move on.
That's a really good signal. If they can't get you in front of the partnership in 2 weeks, move on, kind
Right.
of thing. And last thing is, where do we find you if the audience wants to get a hold of you? What's the best way to reach you or
Yeah,
follow you?
super easy email. It's just Tamara, Tamara at m12.vc. I'm definitely an email person, just so you know. And my Twitter is just at Tamara Steffens. I don't check DMs enough, but I do. And obviously LinkedIn. Please link into me. It's obviously a Microsoft product, right? So I'm on LinkedIn every day, and I do look at that often. So any way you want to get in touch with me, Twitter, LinkedIn, or just email me.
You're gonna have a lot of people sliding into your DMs and email. Awesome, Tamara. It's been great. I learned a ton. It was super interactive. I enjoyed this thoroughly. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you so much. You too. Bye.
Thanks.